What if the Canadian job market you thought you knew quietly changed while you were sleeping? In hospitals, tech hubs, construction sites and delivery depots, new faces are filling old gaps. Is this a normal labor shift? Or are Canadians being replaced by Indian, Filipino and Chinese workers? Today we pull the curtain on hiring pipelines, policy loopholes and the economics the headlines skip. Chapter 1. The big question. Replacement or realignment. Replacement sounds dramatic, and that's why it trends. But under the surface are forces that look less like a hostile swap and more like the labor market doing what it always does, moving talent to where demand is hottest. The friction is real though. Many Canadians feel squeezed by rising costs, stalled wages, and job competition they didn't see coming. 3 pressure points frame this story: demographic aging, chronic skill shortages, and the rapid expansion of temporary residents tied to work and study. When these collide, employers widen their search, often abroad, to keep projects alive and services running. Perception throttles reality. A laid-off warehouse worker in Brampton or Scarborough doesn't feel macro trends. They feel a missing paycheck. In that sense, replacement is a story about lived experience, not just statistics. Sector by sector, we see different engines at work. Healthcare brings in nurses and PSWs. Tech recruits specialized developers. Construction taps skilled trades. Logistics hires to keep e-commerce moving. Each has its own bottlenecks and its own politics. Immigration programs and study-to-work pipelines became a shock absorber for Canadian employers. When domestic supply lagged, international talent shifted into position. It's not a conspiracy, it's a system design with incentives that often favor speed over patient domestic training. That design has winners and losers. Employers win when vacancies close fast. Consumers win when services don't stall. But domestic job seekers may lose when training pathways are underfunded or when entry-level roles morph into experience-required jobs. Emotions amplify when the economy slows. A hiring pause flips the script. International candidates who were once a solution can now be seen as competition. The narrative changes faster than policy can adapt. Our job in this film is not to scapegoat workers, Canadian or foreign, but to map the pipelines, the incentives, and the trade-offs. Only then can we answer the real question: are Canadians being replaced, or are we avoiding the hard work of fixing training, productivity, and wages? Chapter 2. Pipelines. 101. How talent actually flows. Think of Canada's labour market as 3 interconnected taps: permanent immigration, temporary foreign workers, and international students who transition into the workforce. Open one tap wider and pressure changes everywhere else. Employers choose channels based on speed and certainty. If a hospital can't staff a ward, it pushes for faster credentialing or recruits internationally. If a startup can't hire a niche engineer, it taps global recruiting. If a farm risks losing a season, it uses seasonal worker streams. The international student pathway became a de facto work pipeline. Students pay tuition, study, and gain postgraduate work permits, filling service, logistics, tech, and health support roles. For many, this is the staircase toward permanent residency. The Temporary Foreign Worker Program, TFWP, and International Mobility Program, IMP, target different needs. TFWP responds to documented shortages. IMP often fast-tracks roles exempt from labor market impact assessments. Employers learn to navigate both. Credential recognition is slow in professions like nursing, teaching, and engineering. That delay pushes foreign-trained professionals into survival jobs while the system catches up. Frustrating for them and confusing for Canadians who can't reconcile shortages with underemployment. Recruiters and private colleges have become power brokers. They match applicants to programs and employers, smoothing the path, but also creating perverse incentives where enrollment grows faster than housing or job capacity. The result is a complex machine. It can look like replacement from the outside, but inside it's really a maze of timelines, permits and bottlenecks that shape who gets hired first. If Canada wants stability, it must align these taps, right-size intakes, fund training, speed credentials, and ensure employers invest in Canadian talent before relying on global shortcuts. Chapter 3. Sectors under the microscope. Healthcare. Aging populations and burnout widened gaps in nursing, PSWs and allied health. Targeted international recruitment filled night shifts and rural placements, roles many hospitals struggled to staff domestically. Tech, venture cycles and AI hype swung hiring from boom to pause. Specialized developers and data talent often came from India and China, while domestic grads asked why entry-level demanded years of experience. Construction and skilled trades. Housing targets push demand faster than apprentice pipelines can supply. Employers bring in experienced electricians, welders and framers, often Filipino talent renowned for overseas experience. Logistics and warehousing. E-commerce growth created constant churn in fulfillment centers. International students frequently bridge shift gaps, while Canadians call for better pay and predictable schedules to retain local workers. Hospitality and food services. Cost of living pressures made late-night, lower-wage roles harder to fill. International workers backstopped restaurants and hotels, stabilizing operations post-pandemic. Education and research. Universities recruit heavily from India and China. Graduates enter Canada-wide job markets, competing for internships and junior roles, often bringing strong technical skills but facing Canadian experience hurdles. Agriculture and care work. Seasonal and live-in roles rely on temporary programs. These workers are essential yet vulnerable. Policy tweaks ripple through grocery prices, elder care availability, and farm viability. Public sector and regulated professions. Hiring is steadier, but credential recognition is strict. Without faster pathways, shortages persist, even while qualified newcomers drive ride-shares to pay rent. Chapter 4. Wages, housing, and the cost of living squeeze. The replacement story is inseparable from affordability. When rents outpace pay, workers feel replaced, even if their job still exists, because the life that job funded no longer does. Employers argue that higher wages alone can't fix shortages when productivity lags and margins are thin. Workers argue that without better pay and schedules, domestic supply won't return to tough roles. Both are partly right. International applicants may accept starter wages to get Canadian experience. That initial acceptance can anchor pay bands, frustrating Canadians who remember pre-inflation salaries. Housing scarcity intensifies competition between students, newcomers, and locals. When people spend half their income on rent, any hiring decision with or without immigrants becomes a flashpoint. The solution is systemic. Scale housing supply, tie program intakes to capacity, and incentivize employers to raise pay where vacancies are chronic. It's not glamorous policy, but it's what works. Productivity upgrades, automation, digital tools, and safety equipment let employers pay more without collapsing margins. Without this, low-wage churn continues, and replacement remains a ready-made headline. Training subsidies and wage top-ups for in-demand domestic roles can rebalance pipelines. When a Canadian can upskill quickly at low cost, foreign recruitment becomes a complement, not a crutch. Ultimately, resentment drops when pay rises, housing expands, and career ladders are visible. Otherwise, any new hire who looks unfamiliar becomes an easy scapegoat for structural problems. Chapter 5. The three communities in focus. Indians, Filipinos, Chinese. Indian workers and students often enter tech, logistics, business programs, and health support roles. Strong English, global networks, and aggressive recruiting pipelines make them highly visible across cities. Filipino workers are prominent in healthcare, care work, and skilled trades. Overseas experience and a reputation for reliability made them core to staffing in hospitals, long-term care, and construction. Chinese students and professionals cluster in STEM, research, and entrepreneurship. Their presence in universities and innovation hubs is significant, feeding into tech startups and graduate programs. Visibility sparks narratives. A stack of rideshare drivers from the same background at the airport, or a clinic staffed by nurses from one country, can feel like replacement, even if it's actually a response to shortages. Each community has internal diversity, not just coders or nurses, but artists, founders, researchers, and tradespeople. Painting with a single brush hides that complexity and fuels needless tension. Many newcomers struggle with credential traps and survival jobs. The public sees competition. The worker sees a doctorate that doesn't unlock their field. Both realities coexist uncomfortably. The fastest way to lower friction is fairness. Protect workers from exploitation, speed up licensing, and hold employers to domestic training plans so no group is used as a workaround. When the system treats people as people, not as cheap fixes, collaboration beats conflict, and Canada gets the best from everyone. Chapter 6. Where the system breaks. Misaligned intakes. Education and immigration targets sometimes outpace housing, transit, and clinical placement capacity, creating pressure that spills into the job market. Credentialing lag. Years-long verification keeps qualified talent on the sidelines. That vacuum fuels the perception that newcomers took jobs while shortages mysteriously persist. Entry-level paradox. Job ads demand experience. Employers demand plug-and-play hires. That pushes both Canadians and newcomers into churn. No one can get the first break. Wage floors versus business reality. Without productivity gains, raising wages alone can sink thin-margin sectors. Without wage movement, roles remain unpopular. The stalemate keeps imports of labor high. Recruiter incentives. Some intermediaries earn more by volume, not outcomes. That can oversell pathways and underdeliver job quality, hurting trust in the system. Data gaps, lagging or opaque data, lets rumors set the narrative. People fill silence with suspicion, and social feeds do the rest. Enforcement and standards. If rules aren't enforced, bad actors undercut wages and credibility, harming both domestic and international workers. Fixing these faults isn't glamorous, but it is doable. Transparency, capacity-linked planning, faster licensing, and training for hiring compacts between governments and employers change behaviors fast. Chapter 7. What fair looks like. Action blueprint. Capacity-linked intakes tie student and work streams to local housing, transit, and clinical placement seats. If capacity is tight, intakes slow. If capacity expands, streams open. Fast-track credentials. 1-year max pathways for critical professions, with supervised practice and standardized exams offered quarterly. No one benched for years. Train to hire compacts. Employers receive subsidies to upskill Canadians into shortage roles in exchange for hiring commitments and transparent wage floors. Wage plus productivity packages. Grants for automation and safety gear paired with wage lifts, so competitiveness and pay rise together. Recruiter accountability. Licensing, fee transparency, and penalties for misrepresentation. Reward outcomes. Graduation and decent jobs, not just enrollment. Real entry-level roles. Remove unrealistic experience requirements. Fund paid internships and apprenticeships that convert to permanent jobs. Better data, public dashboards, real-time vacancy and wage tracking by region and sector tamps down rumor and helps students choose viable paths. Community investment. Support services for both newcomers and locals, language, retraining, mental health, so transitions feel supported, not threatening. Chapter 8. The honest answer: are Canadians being replaced by Indians, Filipinos, and Chinese workers? In some workplaces it can feel that way, but at the system level what's happening is a stressed economy using the fastest available levers to fill gaps. When wages stagnate, housing crunches, and training lags, replacement becomes the story people tell to make sense of pain. The better story is harder. Fix the pipes and pressure drops. Scapegoating workers solves nothing. The problem isn't Indian coders, Filipino nurses, or Chinese grad students. It's a policy architecture that didn't keep pace with reality. Canadians deserve a job market that invests in them first, without pitting them against newcomers. That balance isn't mythical, it's mechanical. Align the taps and you'll see it. Employers must step up on training and pay. Governments must match intakes to capacity. Colleges must be honest brokers, not volume machines. Newcomers deserve clear, fast routes to work in their trained fields, and protection from exploitation that drags standards down for everyone. If we choose solutions over slogans, the question, who's replacing whom, fades, and the focus shifts to building a market where Canadians thrive and newcomers contribute without controversy. The future isn't a zero-sum game. It's a bigger table, with standards high enough that no one needs to be replaced to move forward. If you want a Canada that trains its own, pays fairly, and welcomes talent without undercutting anyone, share this video. Drop a comment with your city and sector so we can map the real gaps. Subscribe for our next investigation, and if this helped, hit the like button so more Canadians see it. Let's fix the system, not fight each other.